You're listening to Vegan World Radio. Tonight, we check in with the latest from the petroleum catastrophe in the Gulf of Mexico.
Out into the Gulf you can see oil slicks, booms randomly placed. It doesn't seem that they're serving any particular purpose.
And then we talk to Chef Tikur to find out about the vegan masterpieces he's cooking up at the Shape Community Center. And finally, we meet Victoria Moran, author of the Love Power Diet book.
The fact is, maybe to me it's an entree, but to that chicken, it's life or death. And when you finally get that, it is very hard to eat any meat at all.
Tonight on Vegan World Radio.
Good evening and welcome to the Vegan World Radio Show. First, we're going to have a quick clip just to hear what's going on with the Gulf Rescue Program in the Gulf of Mexico with Sea Shepherd, and then we'll be joined by Captain Paul Watson.
Well, Sea Shepherd are just getting ready to undertake a flight to Deepwater Horizon. We're just taking off here, setting the coordinates. Deepwater Horizon's about 120 miles off the coast of Louisiana. The Hurricane Alex is grounded most of the flight, so this gave us the opportunity to take off when there was no air cover from BP. We fly out over the Gulf, and even on the coast we can see that although surrounded by booms, oil goes around, over and under the booms and is already contaminating the beaches and the wildlife areas. You can see the booms here, and they're all but completely useless. As we sort of head further out into the Gulf, you can see oil slicks out around the Chandler Islands here. Again, booms randomly placed. It doesn't seem that they're serving any particular purpose. We fly further out. Now we're about 60 or 80 miles from Deepwater Horizon. The oil slicks are getting bigger. The ocean's covered in oil. Some of the colours you can see there are dispersants. Now we're about 40 miles from Deepwater Horizon, and the oil on the surface is hugely contaminating. Bear in mind that what you can see, the surface oil is less than 1% of the oil contamination of the water. 99% is below the surface. We get closer, the oil gets thicker and thicker. We've still seen no ships at all trying to disperse or clean the oil in any way. We're now about 30 to 35 miles out from Deepwater Horizon, and the oil contamination is absolutely horrendous. We see the first vessel cutting a wake through the oil, and we see some random ships here and there, one or two cleaning ships. We saw maybe 3 or 4 in 6 to 7 hours of flying. Here we are 3 minutes from Deepwater Horizon, flying at an undisclosed altitude, and there's our first sight of it. You can see the flaming rigs burning off methane gases and other gases, support vessels around, tender vessels, fire suppressant vessels. And here we are closer. The weather's cleared a bit for the video, and we can see just carnage. The water is no longer water, it's oil. Ships, this is the greatest concentration of ships, and this is the only effort BP are taking to sort the Gulf out. It's not enough.
We are getting ready to be joined by Captain Paul Watson of the Sea Shepherd Conservation Society to give us the latest update of this newest campaign, Operation Gulf Rescue. Captain Watson, are you on the line?
Yes, I am.
Fantastic. Thank you for being able to join us on such short notice. Can you give us an update of the situation and what Sea Shepherd hopes to accomplish out there?
Well, it's very difficult for anybody to actually do anything in the Gulf because the U.S. government and BP have made it impossible, and non-government organizations are not welcome. They're refusing assistance from foreign countries, and nothing is really being done at all. It's like they just want it to just sort of go away, and if they figure if they ignore it, it'll all go away. What Sea Shepherd's doing right now is we're preparing a vessel in the Netherlands to come over and do what we can to rescue oiled wildlife and animals. We've got a lot of experience with oil spills going back to the Exxon Valdez days and the Jessica spill in the Galapagos. So we're hoping to go in there and make a difference, but really, we can do just so much. Really, we need all of the non-government organizations, and we need all of these governments that have offered their assistance to come in.
Now, I understand that you're training volunteers, or are you asking for volunteers? How is that? What part of that is the program?
Well, we are looking for volunteers, and of course, everybody to go in the Gulf has to have a hazardous material training. It's like a 24-hour course, so we're getting people together and to take that course, and then we're outfitting the vessel, and we still have to get permission to go in. We might have to just go in without permission and most likely be arrested, but at least that'll draw attention to the fact that they're preventing people from going in to help. It's actually illegal now to approach within 65 feet of an oiled bird or animal to help them.
Yeah, in that respect, who have you talked to directly so far? Have you gotten direct resistance?
Yeah, we've talked to Coast Guard, we've talked to British Petroleum. British Petroleum seems to think that they got the whole thing under control. That's what they say anytime anybody asks, we don't need your help, we've got it under control, which of course isn't true. I just don't understand why President Obama's doing nothing. Even the governor of Louisiana can't get him on the phone to ask him what's going on.
Well, in the clip that we heard of your on the ground, they're saying they were shocked by just the lack of ships, that there aren't people there acting. What is the prognosis for this, or what hope can there be for the animals in the ecosystem?
I think that what they have here is an ecological catastrophe that they can't control. It's out of control, and the only hope is to drill another well, and that's going to take at least until the end of August. And so they're working on that, and in the meantime, what they're doing is just trying to ignore everything until they can get that well capped by drilling the second well.
What is the situation for the animals that your team is encountering there? What have they seen so far, and what do they perhaps know that the general public isn't hearing so far?
Well, what they've been doing is burning the bodies of turtles and dolphins and whales at night, so to cover up the evidence. A lot of turtles have been burned alive when they set patches of the oil on fire to try and burn it up. The numbers of actual creatures being killed in this spill is in the millions. This is the breeding grounds for the bluefin tuna, the Atlantic bluefin tuna. We don't know what that impact is, and it's an endangered species. The sperm whales are in there at this time of year, and the birds, the pelicans, the birds. It's just absolutely incredible the number of birds that are going to be affected by this. And then all of the estuaries and marshes along the Gulf Coast are all, of course, where the fish and the crustaceans and the invertebrates all breed. This is an ecological catastrophe. There's no way else of explaining it. President Obama is going to come off much worse than even President Bush did with Katrina because he's not handling this responsibly.
In the flyovers that you've done, have you had any problem with access on these flyovers?
Well, what happened is that our plane took off right after the hurricane and got just in under the radar. We weren't supposed to be there.
Okay.
And dove down, and because there's a 3,000-foot restriction, you can't fly under 3,000 feet. Of course, you can't really see anything from 3,000 feet, so that's the whole point of that. So this flight, we were able to get in there because there was very little activity. We weren't detected. It was quite amazing, actually. We felt certain that we were going to be contacted through radar by the authorities and ordered out, and we weren't.
So you're mobilizing one of your own ships, and I've read on your website that you're trying to mobilize other ships from possibly Europe and even the United States to bring them down?
Well, yes, sir. For instance, Sea Shepherd Brazil, which has got a lot of experience in oil spills, the U.S. denied the visas to our people to come in and help wildlife, so they flew to Cuba to see what they could do there. And when they landed in Cuba, they were denied entry on the grounds that they were a member of a radical organization, Sea Shepherd. So I thought it was strange that Sea Shepherd's too radical for Castro. But, everybody tries to help, let alone, us. I mean, governments, for instance, the Dutch government, the German government, are all being told that, no, your help's not welcome.
Oh, that's amazing.
Now, a lot of this information is available on your website, seashepherd.org, but I know that this is going to be a tremendously expensive campaign. We want everybody to help you as much as possible, but what do people need to understand about what you're facing with your participation and what you need and what you could use help with?
Well, ironically, our biggest expense is fuel. And when we contacted BP about that, they absolutely refused to help us and said, look, we don't need your help. We have it under control. So the ironic part about it is we actually have to buy fuel, certainly not from BP, but in order to go over there and protect wildlife. Another thing that's worth pointing out here is that BP is a supplier to the Pentagon. The Pentagon buys $1 billion worth of fuel from BP every year. So I don't know if that fits into the equation, but everybody seems being very defensive of British Petroleum. I mean, they caused this problem, and now they're in charge of solving it, which just doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, I think BP is definitely a negative bedfellow for the United States government.
And former members of the EPA have described BP as a serial environmental criminal. The head of investigations for Sea Shepherd is Scott West. He retired from EPA 2 years ago. And he retired because he was a whistleblower on BP in Alaska. He was investigating them when they had a major oil spill. He was continuing his investigation when in the middle of the investigation he was called into the federal attorney's office and said the investigation was closed. And he said, you can't close an investigation before it's completed. He said, I'm going to send these guys to jail. He said, no, you're not. We're going to hit him with a misdemeanor, $20 million fine. Now, here's the strange thing about it. If Scott had been allowed to complete his investigation, some top executives from BP would have gone to jail, and that might have actually prevented this spill in the Gulf. So the problem is that these oil companies, especially BP, have just had their wrists slapped for years after years for causing incredible problems and oil spills and getting people killed, even like in Texas. Nothing is being done to discourage them because they just buy their way out of it.
I want to encourage people to donate to you, and I don't know if you really touched on that. Are you looking specifically to try to get people to donate through your website?
Yes, people can donate through our website, and we're working right now to outfit that vessel in the Netherlands. As soon as we can get it outfitted, we'll be on our way. That, and of course, we have to get permission. And if we don't get that permission in a certain amount of time, then we'll just go in without the permission.
So if you get one or two ships down there, you might have to sit and wait until you're allowed to go in?
Yeah, but if it gets to the point where, we might just have to just go in and risk getting arrested and seized, that'll look pretty strange to be arrested for trying to save wildlife from this oil spill.
Yeah, I guess the more publicity and pictures you can put out, the better.
It's such an overwhelming situation, and it's still not coming to an end. How far in the future do you see this affecting the ecology of the Gulf? And like you said, the breeding of animals and the birds and the tuna that use the Gulf. What are going to be the later impacts of this?
Well, I think that the impact on the Gulf is going to be horrendous, and I think the people who live along the Gulf Coast are certainly coming to that realization. Our concern also is for this is the Gulf Stream, which can take this oil up the coast of the eastern seaboard and all the way over to Europe if it keeps going this way. So, but the other concern is that there's going to be major hurricanes. This is predicted to be a major hurricane season. A lot of that oil, which is underwater right now, will be thrown to the top and thrown up onto the coastlines and into the marshes. So the hurricanes are going to certainly, exaggerate this whole issue, and it's going to cause even further problems. I think that the governor of Louisiana is trying to do what he can, but he's got his hands tied. The other Gulf Coast governors, are also in the same situation. I think it was the governor, I believe it was either Mississippi or Alabama, one of the two, but he was actually denying it because he was working for BP at one point. He was denying there was any problem at all, but even he's coming overboard and said, look, this is out of control, and we need help.
With your kind of credibility, I hope that people really wake up and realize that this is going to affect so many more things and people around the Gulf Coast area and like you said, around the world, affecting possibly Europe. People really need to wake up and realize this is much more serious than it seems.
A few moments left, but did you have any final words for us? And we also wanted to just tell you our happiness and congratulations for Captain Pete Bethune and his release that just came out.
Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, he'll be back home in New Zealand on the weekend. The only thing I'd like to finish off with is the fact that, this oil spill is just one more factor with overfishing, acidification, all sorts of other things, which is causing massive destruction of biodiversity in our oceans. And, if the oceans die, then we die. We can't exist with a dead ocean. So this is really a question of self-preservation.
And for the record, Captain Watson, we know that your vessels are vegan. Be sure and let all of our listeners know what's the number one thing that they can do in their personal choices.
Yeah, I think on personal choices, is that we have to start looking at what the impact that we have and where we get our energy from. And we certainly shouldn't be supporting oil companies that don't have the technology to solve the problems that they cause.
Thank you again for joining us, especially on such short notice. We can't wait to have you once again on the program.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Captain Watson, you are, I just want to tell you, you're one of my personal heroes.
Well, thank you.
Welcome back to the Vegan World Radio Show. You're listening to 90.1 in Houston. And in this next segment, X and myself are joined by two very distinguished gentlemen that have a fantastic vegan international cuisine cafe here in Houston. It's a pleasure to have them in the studio with us this evening. Chef Tikur and your business partner,
Enoch.
Welcome to the program.
Yes, it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to be here and to share the positive energy that we possess and the things that how we affect the world and our actions and what we do, the conscious things that really matter, that affect our whole universe. So.
Well, first of all, let's tell everybody where your restaurant is, Tikur's, and just a little bit about the inspiration you had for it, both philosophical and your delicious food.
Okay, we're located out of the Shapes Community Center. That's 3815 Live Oak. That's on the corner of Live Oak in Alabama. It's a community center that's designed to help families, help ones in need. And so that is where we fit in as far as hand in hand, providing people what they need, a healthy alternative to what we're used to as a whole, as far as where you can go, what you can consume and enjoy it.
Tell us about some of the food on your menu. It's absolutely phenomenal, and it's the reviews you're getting. For example, on Happy Cow, people are saying they can't get this kind of food anywhere else in Houston. It's inspired. You also have a raw food section that you're very gifted in raw food, but your savory, fantastic dishes, you've got a fish-style tofu, but it's the flavoring of it is so fantastic. And either one of you speak up, tell us a little bit about the food at Tikur's.
Well, first and foremost, the food that we cook is all organic. You know what I'm saying? We specialize in fixing different variety type of food, from vegetable curry fried rice to jambalaya to pasta to whatever your craving is, to what you like. We try to meet our goal is to try to meet everyone's expectations. Try to satisfy everyone that come in the restaurant. We cook over 5, 6, 7 different styles of dishes, from Ethiopian to soul food to Asian to Mexican to Indonesian to whatever, you know what I'm saying? So we across the board, where you can come and get a slice of whatever type of food that you like. Different types of sweets, you know?
Yeah, we feel that the options are very limited to what we can do and as far as where we can go and enjoy a nice meal. And the places that you go, you're limited to what you can get. So our mentality is to share with the world our experience and how we live through years of living a life that appreciates other life. Everything we do is in appreciation for that. So the vegan world in which we live, we wanted to share that in the best way that we can. So providing different varieties. Now we may alter the menu and nothing is really set. Because we want to, there's so many things that we have to offer, that most ones that if you don't live like this, then you wouldn't even think about it, So we wanted to share that and so that you can experience the joy. So even if you're not a vegan or vegetarian person, you can still come and enjoy something and not miss your flesh and what you consume. So we and then so as you mentioned, the raw side is just man, we're excited about what's coming. We have some things in the making and oh man, touch on that.
Yeah. I mean, we cooked. Like I say, we give you the best of both worlds. You know what I'm saying? For those that want live food, we got different styles of raw food, different types of juices that you could come and desire, you know what I'm saying, that you can't get nowhere else, in Houston particularly, you know what I'm saying. We craved on creating a venue and the menus for that'll fit everyone's desired taste and desires, So it's a long list. I don't think we have enough time to list all the things that I will have on.
What we're planning to do, but we've also integrate. We like to network with other ones in the vegan world. So and everything is one hand, and then it's a whole body as far as in this universe in which we dwell. So we have other partners that we're bringing in, integrating into the business to enhance what we want to do, but we also want to let the world know that we're here to show you something that you might not have experienced. You may have, but you haven't experienced it the way you would experience it in our atmosphere. It's a homey, family type environment.
I think the Shape Center is really exciting for that too, because it's the whole center has a real positive kind of attitude and or feeling about it. And there's always something going on there.
Most definitely.
It's exciting. It's great for families.
Most definitely.
And yeah, like you were saying, for people that even eat a standard American diet, they're not going to miss anything by going.
Right.
They're going to have a great time, and your food is fantastic.
Right.
Yeah.
It's located, as you were saying, in the Shape Community Center on Live Oak. There's two different shapes, but you're on Live Oak.
3815 Live Oak, that location.
And you're Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday,
exactly.
Correct?
And outside of those days, what we do cater to. We have a couple customers that we cater to personally, so we're personal chefs for a couple of people where we will actually go out.
Lucky people.
Yeah. we're fortunate just as well, so it's a hand in hand, and we get just as much joy as preparing it as you should as receiving it. Also, I wanted to mention on the 18th is a family day. That's a Sunday. We're really focusing on a nice family setting, nice family meal that you used to get at home on Sundays. So we want to.
What are the hours for that?
The hours would be from 1 to 9 o'clock on the 18th. So if you come in with
9 p.m.
Yeah, 9 p.m. If you come in with your family, you have a discount on your meal. So.
Tikur, and your hours normally on Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday are
from 4 to 9.
4 to 9. Do you have a website or anything?
Yes, we do. You can. Our website is under construction, but it will be updated with our new logo that's out, as well as our shirts that you will see as you come in and check us out. So,
what's your website?
Our website is tikur.com. You can link it through Happy Cow. It's a link from the Happy Cow. So if you
and how do people spell Tikur?
TIKUR.com.
Thank you, gentlemen, both so much. I'm sorry we're out of time.
No problem. Thank you for the time.
Hey, thanks for coming out.
Love y'all, babies.
Hey, we really appreciate it, and most definitely keep up the good work, you guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, y'all too.
You're listening to the Vegan World Radio Show here on Pacifica, 90.1 KPFT in Houston. You can find us online at veganworldradio.org. Also look us up on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube.
Sees not the fragmented flesh of dead animals, but appetizing food. Vegetarian activities counter patriarchal consumption and challenge the consumption of death. Feminist vegetarian activity declares that an alternative worldview exists, one which celebrates life rather than consuming death, one which does not rely on resurrected animals, but empowered people. It takes the notion of objectification one step further. Not only have we objectified animals, but in objectifying them, we take what we want from them and leave the rest out. We leave their death out and we take their bodies. The sexual politics of meat. The sexual politics of meat.
Back to Vegan World Radio. This evening, we welcome internationally known inspirational speaker and certified life coach, author of 10 books, translated into 26 languages, including Living a Charmed Life, Fit from Within, Creating a Charmed Life, and her newest book, The Love Powered Diet, which recommends a totally plant-based and vegan diet. We welcome Victoria Moran to the program this evening.
Thanks so much, Sherilyn.
Oh, it's a wonderful pleasure, Victoria. And we've been wanting to have you on for a while. We spoke about your book a few months ago when it first came out, but please fill us in of what inspired you to create this book. I think it's the 3rd edition of it. Is that right?
Yes, it's really a magical thing in publishing because most of the time a book is lucky to get a life of a few years and then, you can maybe find it used somewhere. But when this book first came out, way back in 1992, it was same title, The Love Powered Diet, and then the subtitle was something different. Oh, I know, it was When Willpower is Not Enough. At that time, I had been free from compulsive overeating and basically trying to inadvertently kill myself with a fork for 6 years, and that seemed like a really long time. But anybody who's got that problem knows the recidivism rate is just awful. You're really statistically better off to be a heroin addict than to be a compulsive overeater. And I was so excited at that time that I felt that I'd found this incredible combination of a way to fill the inner gap on the inside and then have this lovely way to eat that's satisfying, that also, I think, gives you some kind of extra points with the universe or something, so that it's just so much easier to be at peace with food and weight. So that was 1992, and it had a lovely life. And then in 1997, another publisher, Rodale, picked it up. They gave it a new title, and we revised and revamped and all that. It was called Love Yourself Thin, and again, great life. And it actually went into mass market paperback. I call that my only airport book out of my 10 books. I had one mass market, and that was Love Yourself Thin. And then I thought, okay, this is good. This book has had its shot. But people kept contacting me and saying, I love this book changed my life, this book saved my life, and people would write and say, the first half of your book is the best book on spiritual recovery in the 12-step program for overeaters that's out there, and other people would say, the second half of your book is the best book on veganism that I've ever read. And then what finally brought me over the line that I knew I had to look for another publisher, there is a wonderful personal trainer who works out of Chicago and L.A., John Pierre. You may have had him on your show. And I met him at Vegetarian Summerfest in, I guess, 2007, and he said, I make all my clients read The Love-Powered Diet, and if they can't find a used copy, I photocopy it for them. And it's a long book. To save John Pierre making photocopies, I talked with the lovely people at Lantern Books who specialize in, human rights, animal rights, veganism, and all kinds of things that make the world better, to see if they would be interested in taking a chance on incarnation number 3, and they said yes.
Well, and we love Lantern. They are, of course, a friend every vegetarian and vegan knows about Lantern, but what was it when did you decide to adopt the plant-based protocol?
Well, I became a lacto-ovo vegetarian when I was 19. I gave up everything but fish when I was 18. I was living in London. I grew up in Kansas City, Missouri, but this was the era of the Beatles and that, and you really had to be in London, so I got myself over there to go to school. And I'd always been fascinated by the idea of vegetarianism. I remember when I first heard about it, I had a wonderful, very spiritual nanny. My parents both worked, so this woman was an older lady, and she lived with us and took care of me. And I remember coming in and telling her about the 4 food groups when I learned about them in 2nd grade or so. And she said, well, there are people who never eat any meat at all, and they're called vegetarians. And I remember thinking, wow, there's so much I don't know. So this fascination kind of started early. When I was 13, I stopped eating meat for about 4 months, and I basically lived on cottage cheese and canned pineapple. And then I just got really hungry and went back to eating meat. And I remember when I was a sophomore in high school, I got out of biology because I didn't want to do vivisection, and got transferred into human science, which was actually kind of cool because you got to learn about sex, but it was not a college preparatory class, and the counselor was all snooty about it. And the biology teacher said, don't want to cut up a frog, but I'll bet you eat meat. And I was so embarrassed. It's like, oh my goodness, this is a real oxymoron. This is not integrity. And I said, I do now, but I promise you I won't always. And he said, you know what, I believe you. And he signed the form, and, I got to go learn about sex, so it all worked out really well. So this was kind of the history. And then when I was in London, there were vegetarian restaurants. I mean, I'm from Kansas City, Missouri. At that time, we didn't have vegetarian restaurants. And I'd gotten into yoga, and at that time, you pretty much had to be vegetarian to do yoga. I'm appalled now that they just sweep it under the rug, other than Jivamukti, and some yoga people still uphold that standard of ahimsa, but it's not at all a requirement as it used to be. But I was fat, and I got into Weight Watchers, and that was when Weight Watchers still had a diet. Everybody ate the same thing, and one of the teachings was you had to eat fish 5 times a week. And basically, I believed that if I didn't eat fish 5 times a week, I would turn into the Goodyear blimp. So I did stop eating red meat and chicken, but I held on to the fish. And then when I was 19, I let go of the fish, but I believed that I would gain all my weight back in doing so. And guess what? I did. Not because of any fish deficiency, but because I believed. And so when I stopped eating fish, I also started binging again. So it was a long haul. Only one time after I stopped eating fish did I ever go back to meat, even in an eating binge. I can remember once. And anybody that's listening who's experienced this, it's like you're crazy. I mean, it really is like you watch on TV, the drug rampaged person or whatever. and it was like that. And I remember one time reaching in my grandmother's oven and pulling out some chicken and taking a bite of that, and then just feeling like, you really have hit bottom. This is about as low as you can go. But ultimately, when I found this spiritual recovery program for the compulsive eating, I was given the most wonderful gift. Not only was I able to stay a vegetarian, but I was finally able to be a vegan, because I knew about veganism, and it made sense, and it made moral sense, but all the junk food had eggs and dairy in it. So that was just really an impossible prospect. But once I had the inner recovery, I got the gift of veganism as well.
It's a beautiful gift, and as so many of your books express, the emotions that we have are so connected to our eating, are so connected to our bodies, and to make peace with all of it, as well as becoming nonviolent in our consumption. Speak to us more about how you've been able to help people connect their emotions with their eating?
Well, it's an interesting thing. Somebody said to me once in terms of the spiritual recovery, when these ideas touch you any place, they touch you every place. And sometimes I see people change their diet and then their attitudes change. And other times people change their attitude and then their diet changes. And so I just say, go out there and shine your light and see how it touches people. It's such an interesting thing that there are some exquisitely beautiful people in this world, spiritual people who are just so far ahead of me in their whole ethical stance in this world, and yet they don't have the food piece. They're still eating animals.
Right.
And there are times I'm just in awe. It's like, even I got the don't eat animals piece, and I am really imperfect. But we're all where we are. And so every step that we take is a refinement. And I've seen that with the food. I've been getting more toward a raw food diet, especially when it's warm out. I mean, I certainly am not ever intending to make it through a New York City winter completely raw, because I do get really cold. But when I am doing more of the greens and juicing and that, my thinking is at a higher plane. I'm just happier. It's just easier. My default kind of elevates. And so instead of normal, when people say, how are you? Instead of normal just being, I'm okay, okay, it's, I'm fabulous. Because that's really what I feel. So it's almost like a gift, I think, that, as Emerson said, health and beauty are nature's gifts for living within her laws. I think happiness and clarity are the same kind of gifts.
Well, and a lot of people hear this show every time for the first time, and they might be listening to this and making their health resolutions. And what could you offer people that would inspire them to go completely plant-based, along with their resolution to get healthier with all of the other things that they have in mind, to actually throw off all animal products? And I also wanted you to speak about this fabulous chapter that you have of actually going out and visiting the places where the animals are being processed and all of that. Speak to us about what could inspire people listening to this for the first time.
Yeah. I think that if somebody is ready, it takes almost nothing. It takes just the fact that they were on Google and saw something called Vegan World Radio, and then they'll do it. Somebody who's not ready, it's going to take a whole lot more. It's going to take them getting ready. And I didn't understand this at one point. I used to think if I explained it properly, and people understood what's going on with these animals, which I think it is the definitive argument. I understand the environmental argument that the animal agriculture puts out more greenhouse gases than all the motor vehicles, but that's still theoretical. You know, that whole thing, it's science, and it's something that I don't understand, and I don't think most people understand or can get their minds around. We've got so much fabulous health information. Vegetarians, particularly vegans, plant-based eaters, live longer, fewer sick days, more energy, better sex life. There are all kinds of reasons to do this. And yet, if you're not ready, you say, but look at my friend over there, and look at my 85-year-old grandfather, and look at this famous athlete, and they eat some meat, and they're doing fine. The animal argument, the fact is, maybe to me it's an entree, but to that chicken, it's life or death. And when you finally get that, it is very, very, very hard to eat the chicken. What it takes to get somebody to the point where they get it is different for everybody. For some people, it's reading a book. And I know lots and lots of people have read The Love-Powered Diet and gone on a plant-based diet a day at a time for life. And I know there are other books that a lot more people have read. I mean, Diet for a New America is probably number one in getting people off animal products. And there's so many wonderful books out there. There are all these wonderful films that people see, and they see what actually happens to the animals, and that's just it. But I also know lots and lots of people who see those films or read those books, and then they turn it off. because either it's too awful, they just can't even think about it, or for some reason a part of them is closed. And all I know to do with those people is just hold them in the light and be glad that we have so many people coming over to a plant-based diet all the time.
Well, the style that you write, Victoria, it's so accessible. People can understand it. People can relate to you in your personal revelations. They give people hope. They think, I've been there. I can relate to this. I can understand. And you also incorporate some of the 12-step methodology. Is that right?
Yeah, the first half of the book is really how to recover from compulsive overeating. And it uses the same 12 steps as AA. I recommend that if somebody is really a compulsive overeater, that they get themselves to Overeaters Anonymous, because there's help there that you can't get anyplace else. Now, certainly not everybody with a weight problem is a compulsive eater. It's very easy in this country to have a weight problem because the food that is offered is high fat and low fiber and high in salt. And it's also more possible every day to have two perfectly good legs and never use them. So we can basically have a whole life and just sit all the time. So it is certainly possible to be overweight without the emotional component. But so many people, so many women, and some men too, eat for a fix. We use food as a drug. And if that is the case, then Carl Jung described it so beautifully about alcoholism, but it's the same with food addiction or any other kind of addictive process. He said that to really change, the only thing that he knew that could make a difference was for a person to have, and this is a quote, a complete emotional displacement and rearrangement. And those 12 steps are a program designed to bring that about. It's quite lovely, quite wonderful. And a program like Overeaters Anonymous, unless you find some weird kind of offshoot meetings, a standard OA meeting, has no diet, no opinion on food. You're on your own about food. You can be a vegan, you can be a raw fooder, you can be a whatever you want to be, because OA and the 12 steps are about this change from the inside so that you finally get the power of choice. I do holistic health counseling as well. That's one of the hats that I wear. And so often people will come to me and say that they've been to other holistic health counselors or nutritionists who just tried to get them to eat in a certain way and couldn't get it, that they just could not do it. It's not about knowledge. If you can't do it, you have to get past can't. So that's what the first part of the Love Power Diet is about. That's about getting to the point where you can sit between meals and not feel like you're going to die if you don't have something to eat, drink, or chew. It's about getting through the resentments and the fears that cause people to overeat, people who have this propensity anyway. And once you're through all that, and it's a day at a time. I mean, it's never like, okay, I'm cured, bring on the next thing. There's always a certain amount of vigilance there. And yet, it's such freedom. And what you get is the power of choice. Like all those years that I wanted to be a vegan. Oh, gosh, I want to be a vegan. Oh, I'm sorry, baby veal calf. I'm sorry, I'm drinking milk that's supposed to be yours. I couldn't. And then once I had the choice, I was able to do that. And it just feels so good. It feels good to finally be at peace with your own morality instead of having your actions fly in the face of that. So first the inner recovery and then the great adventure of a plant-based diet and a vegan lifestyle with all the other wonderful things of learning about cosmetics and shoes, all the things that we can do to live in a way that does the most good and the least harm.
And also your book is such a good resource. You have a number of appendixes of the recommended reading list, the nutritional information. The Love Power Diet, it's a resource for people who are making this transition so they don't have to go through it alone.
Well, we never do, and there's so much information out there now. I mean, just, you can go online and just Google vegan and days, just with the recipes and all the wonderful information that's out there, the support groups. So it's not the lonely path that it once was. And it's just so much fun. I mean, I do live in New York City, so I'm a little bit spoiled because we obviously have a lot of vegan options here. But I was at lunch the other day with a book editor, and this was just a French place. And, you know, French places tend to be not very vegan-friendly.
Yeah.
She actually asked the question before I did, do both of your soups have dairy in them? And he said, our only vegan soup today, mulligatawny soup. And it was just so sweet. It's like to hear somebody with a French accent say, our only vegan soup is, you know, so he said only. It only takes one.
Well, your book has gotten wonderful reviews. Of course, Rory Friedman, Dean Ornish, author of the Ornish Program for Reversing Heart Disease, John Robbins, Michael Clapper, the list goes on, and President of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, Dr. Neil Barnard, has said Victoria Moran's powerful book bridges the gap between knowing that we should eat better and actually doing it. Can you leave us with any closing thoughts?
Oh, just that life is so wonderful when you're not harming yourself and you're not harming others when you can help it. It's very simple, but that's really it. When you can treat yourself well and know that that's rippling out and that you're treating animals well, too, it just feels so great. And I would like to give people, if I can, my website.
Oh, please do. Absolutely.
Moran, Moran.com. And I am doing a teleclass called Come Into Your Own that is designed to help people with so many of these things. I did the teleclass this year, and I think we're something like out of 31 participants, we're like up to 27 vegans. Oh. So it's a great adventure. So if anybody's interested, just go to my site, and where it says contact and subscribe, drop me a little note, and I'll give you more information.
It couldn't be more easy to remember, VictoriaMoran.com. And I just want to thank you again so much for being on Vegan World Radio, and we hope to have you again on really soon.
Thank you so much.
And if you recognize the music we played just before that, that was The Sexual Politics of Meat by Consolidated, with Professor Carol Adams reading from her book on the 20th anniversary of Sexual Politics of Meat. X, we have a few announcements we're going to try to fit in the time remaining.
First off, PETA is extending their protest for the Ringling Brothers Circus. It started today. They had a protest today, but they're going to extend it July 10th, 14th, 17th. That's Saturday, July 10th, Wednesday, July 14th, and Saturday, July 17th. You can get details at veganworldradio.org. And the meeting place is the same, Kirby at Merworth Drives, just outside Reliance Stadium.
Dr. Montgomery is starting his vegan nutrition classes again on July 24th. There'll be 5 meetings going through August 21st. And in about 2 weeks, Shirley Wilkes-Johnson will be interviewing Dr. Montgomery here on the show. That'll be July 21st, so you don't want to miss it. Next week, Anuj will be returning from Vegetarian Summerfest, so hopefully he might have some clips for us and he'll have all the news. He'll also be speaking to a Canadian filmmaker who's begun an event called Animal Freedom Day coming up later in July.
One more, July 25th, Sunday, 3 to 6 p.m., vegan culinary classes through Leisure Learning Unlimited. Stacey Davis of Radical Eats is giving a 101, arguably the healthiest way to eat. Learn to cook with fresh, pure, unadulterated food. Get the most out of nutrients and savor the wonderful flavors. Learn to make a savory tart, an elegant bisque, salads with dressings, and even cookies. Enjoy one smoothie and learn to make many others. This is a hands-on class taught by Stacey Davis, and that's July 25th, 3 to 6 p.m., near 59 at Fondren. For details, look at Leisure Learning Unlimited.
Thank you, X, for helping me with the announcements. There's a few more. Please go to veganworldradio.org. Join us again next Wednesday at 10 p.m. I want to thank Avon for producing tonight's show and letting us be a part of it. Also, of course, Captain Paul Watson, Victoria Moran, and the gentleman from Tikur's. Remember, there are a world of reasons to go vegan, and a vegan world will bring us peace.
You've been listening to Vegan World Radio.
Our hosts tonight were Geraldine and Vegan X.
The program was produced and mixed by Avon. Vegan World Radio is a collectively run organization operated on a basis of equality.
Remember that you can get all the details of today's program at veganworldradio.org. Please also find us on Facebook, Twitter and YouTube. To contact our collective directly, email info@veganworldradio.org. If you have missed any portion of tonight's program, you can hear it again on the archive and podcast at kpfd.org.
Stay tuned for Damage Control coming up next. You are listening to KPFT 90.1 FM in Houston and 89.5 in Galveston.